Thanks for tuning in to another show in the next Reel family of film podcasts.
Want to skip those ads and get early access?
Become a member at truestory.fm/join and discover all the other great perks that come with it. Welcome to Movies We Like, part of the True Story FM Entertainment Podcast Network. I'm Andy Nelson, and that over there is Pete Wright.
It is confirmed, Pete Wright.
On today's episode, we have invited cinematographer Jeff Cronenweth to talk about Blade Runner, a movie he likes. Jeff, welcome to the show. We are thrilled to have you joining us here today to not just talk about Blade Runner, which is, there's many reasons to talk about Blade Runner, and I'm excited to chat about that with you, but also just about you and your career, and with Tron Ares coming out in theaters, actually, as the episode is live. I'd love to kind of dig into you and your career a little bit. And I mean, I guess let's just start with your probably early time on set as a youth, because your dad, Jordan Cronenweth, was busy shooting movies as well.
Absolutely. I spent as much time as my mother would let me skip school on the sets when I could. And I just, at a very early age, I watched them problem solve, this group of people come together, and this camaraderie to overcome today's obstacles and to celebrate those victories at the end of the day as a group. It just seemed like there was something that I wanted to do and that I wanted to be part of that energy. And I kind of fell in love with that part of it. I didn't know that I wanted to be in the camera department. You know, I was a curious kid, and I would spend a lot of time in the special effects truck, and they taught me how to make blood packs, and I would take my mom's curling iron and destroy it by melting lunch bags around blood ketchup packs so that I could then shoot my brother and have the impact come out. And so
awesome.
So I did that, and then even we had Super 8 cameras around the house, and we made little movies. You know, there was a series of commercials around when I was about 8 or 9 years old for, I think it was Union 76, where it was all stop motion, and people would come into the gas stations without cars, but it was all stop motion, so they would slide in. So I got fascinated by stop motion and made G.I. Joes come to life and attack and overcome obstacles all through, you know, stop motion and a Super 8 camera and cut it yourself. And so it just grew. And then the more time I spent on set with my dad, I really loved the camera department, and I loved watching him create images that were so beautiful. And his aesthetics, I don't know if it's in the DNA or not, but I certainly share the same aesthetics, and so I think that's what kind of helped me evolve as a cinematographer. As I started out, I just reflected so much on some of the things I had seen him do and kept that in mind. And always, you know, he was a very courageous cinematographer. I mean, his images always told the story, and that's what his foundation always was. It's all about story. We're there to support the stories, to make that visual experience connect the words and the nuances of those performances. But he was such a bold guy, and you know, it's a funny thing today. You see a lot of programs, films, TV shows, whatever the format is, and they're very bold and very dark. But that's a knob. That's somebody being brave later in a room after it's already been seen and cut together. That's not waking up at 4 a.m. to call the lab to find out if you have an image and you can show up to work that day. And back then, when the lenses were slower, the film was slower, it was processed, and to push boundaries, you were walking a thin line, and it took a lot of courage, and it took a lot of artistry to create those images.
I marvel a little bit. I know you've been doing a whole bunch of music videos, and you know, we've got some shorts in your catalog, but Fight Club was early in your career, and you know, I mean, I look at your list of credits, and it's possible you have more, you're behind the camera on more of my favorite films than any other cinematographer we've talked to. And that includes some cinematographers I'm a great fan of. But Fight Club seems to be impressively complex for camera. Can you take me back a little bit to your experience on set with that one, and what you're thinking as you're going in on this feature.
David Fincher called me and asked me to come to his house to talk about his next project, right? And so I had shot second unit on 7 in the game. That Harris Vitas and I shot the title sequence, beginning of 7, all the inserts and the fingers and the razor blades and all that stuff.
Extraordinary. Yeah.
And then we did an extra 16 days of work, predominantly Harris, but I shot all the second unit and operated on it. So when David asked me to come in, I assumed he was going to offer me a second unit on Fight Club, right? But instead, he sat down with me and handed me the script and said, "I want you to read the script and let me know if you're interested in shooting this." And I was like, I did my best poker face I could, but as soon as I went out and as soon as his door closed, I was jumping in the air like I don't need to read the script. When David Fincher hands you something and asks if you can shoot it, it's like I don't care if it's Pokey and Gumby. I'm going to shoot this because it's going to be the most interesting Pokey and Gumby that's ever been done.
Right.
And there was more to it though. He started talking about how it'll probably be the best script he gets to direct. This is a long time ago. Obviously,
sure.
He's had great scripts
quite
but,
a number since. You're right.
But in his mindset at the time was this may be the best script I ever get to direct. This may be the best performance that Brad ever gets to, best character that Brad gets to play. He goes, it probably won't make a lot of money, but I want it to be our generation's Blade Runner culturally.
Interesting.
Right. And that was, that's very relevant to today's conversation, but also to me personally. And so I thought, oh my God. And then I went home and read the script and it's insanely complicated. The book is even harder when you read the book. Like, how are you going to make this into a movie? And I think David was extremely, helpful, positive, encouraging, trusting. I certainly made it a much harder on myself than he or the production did.
How so?
Because I didn't want to fail him. I had so much admiration for him that I didn't want to be the weak link in his, it was my first picture. So I have the natural insecurities that anybody would have. I'm 35 years old, I think. And it's a big show with lots of nights and I think we ended up shooting 132 days, and it was a lot. But I look back on it and in no way was it a bad experience, but I put myself through more torture than was necessary just to make sure that I made it right, and there was there was one scene where Ed Norton is laying in bed and he's got insomnia and he can't sleep, and it's a crane shot and we're looking straight down on it. And the art department had not tea stained the sheets properly. In other words, you take a bright white sheet, you wash it with some tea, and it takes the white edge off so it's a little more muted, right? Because somebody sleeping at night looking down on a piece of paper, it's hard to get things to balance out without that being the brightest thing. And you don't want your eye going to the sheet, you want your eye going to Ed Norton's face, right?
Sure.
And so we kept debating it, and Fincher's like, no, make it darker. No, make it darker. It's too dark. It's too dark, right? And he's like, it doesn't look like night. So we did it. And the next day at dailies, it was too dark, right? And I'm like, okay, I'll go tell them I'm the one. I did it. They can replace me, And he's like, what are you talking about? It's like, unless we're pushing the envelope, we're going to make mistakes. It's only money. And otherwise we're tiptoeing on mediocrity, and you can't do that. We'll shoot it again tomorrow. And I told you to push it. It was just one of those, that affirmation kind of helped me tackle the rest of the film because I took it so personally, mostly because of my respect for him.
Wow. And you'd worked with him before, back on George Michael's video, you guys did that together, right?
Yeah. Well, even my dad, the first time we all met, the three of us, David, my dad, and I, was on a Madonna video called Oh Father. It's a black and white, was the last video she did on that album. It was kind of a cross between about her dad and about Sean Penn, and it's quite beautiful. Even John Schwartzman shot second unit on it.
Wow.
just to throw names around.
Yeah, right.
Excuse me while we pick these
A
up.
lot of yeah.
He was John was one of my classmates at USC.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was John, myself, and Robert Brakeman were like the three DP guys, and Phil Joanna was one of our classmates. And funny enough, we went on. My dad shot 2 movies and a concert film with Phil, or we all did.
Really?
Yeah. And then I went in to shoot on. Like he had kind of gotten out of doing features by the time I was shooting, and so, but he had a huge run in commercials, and I must have done 30 or 40 commercials with him.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean those certainly keep you busy anyway because they're quick. You get them done real fast, unlike a feature which can take an incredible amount of time. I mean, you've worked with such a variety of different filmmakers over the course of your career, but you've also worked on a variety of different formats. I mean, you were shooting film, and then you've been one of the many who've kind of transitioned to all of the amazing stuff that you can do with the digital filmmaking these days. Is it like your preference now to shoot digital? Are you itching at some point to jump back into film? I know some filmmakers are very much like, oh, I got to shoot everything on film. Where do you stand on all that?
I love shooting on film. I loved being the one on the set that controlled the visuals. I love being both making artistic contributions and also be the photochemist that understood the process most likely better than anybody else on the set, right?
Sure.
And so there was a certain amount of respect and courage, and it invited less people to the conversation. And now, with the advance of digital and the monitors being so good on set now, there's a lot more people that have opinions about what's going on. And now it's less about, can you see something or is it going to work? And about people talking about the color of a couch in the background. But there's an actor sitting in front of it, and you're just like, I tell you what, I'm going to go with making Nicole Kidman look good. You can tell her if you don't like the color of the couch and ask me to change the light in front of her. You know what I'm saying? It's
Sets become hyper political once everybody can see what you're doing.
They do and they don't, because we're still making this whole setting is for this actor to have an environment to make us believe the performance, right?
Right.
And so if we get sidetracked from that with nuances that aren't really relative, you risk losing the integrity of that, and then you've lost your audience and stuff. I don't mind not waking up so early and being nervous all of a sudden. I like getting up at 6:30 instead of 4:30, and not waking up at 1 a.m. going, oh my God, I hope you can see his eyes.
Panic calls to the lab.
Exactly. So that part of it is great, but in giving that part up, you've opened the door to a lot simpler process of getting there. So that's what I said about the knob. You good cinematography, regardless of what it is that you're shooting on, you still have to put the light in the right places. You still have to compose it the right way, and you still have to make scenes out of it. It's easy to make one shot look good, but now if you got nine angles of coverage on that shot, how do you keep that in that family and make it as interesting as every shot that goes before and behind it, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's where it becomes more difficult. But as far as like this competitive race to see who can shoot the darkest film, I mean, I'm kind of getting older now. When I look at something, I can't see it. I'm like, I can't see what they're doing. And me, because they used to call me like one of the darkest guys out there that shoot, but it wasn't dark to be dark. It was dark because whatever was going on in the sequence wanted it to be dark.
Yeah,
right. And so now I get mad sometimes. Can't see what's going on
from the dragon tattoo guy, right?
Well,
yeah, exactly.
Or I was going to say, the game working with Fincher, because I remember when that came out, there were complaints about like, why are these scenes so dark? He's just walking through a parking garage. Why can't they put a few more lights in there?
My favorite walk away from Seven, which I think is almost a perfect film, is every detective show after that only use flashlights when they're investigating a crime scene. And I'm always sitting at home, and it's just to be funny, like with my wife and stuff. They come by with the flashlight and they go past the light switch. And I'm like, turn the light switch off.
It's right there.
How are you going to see all the clues on the ground when it's pitch black in here? What kind of detective are you? Turn the light on. I saw the switch in the background.
It's
Yeah,
right
right.
there.
Yeah. Oh,
They have
too funny.
7
Granted-
ruined detective sequences forever.
Cut to a year from now and I'm shooting something and they've got a flashlight. You're going to be laughing at me, but
That's
nonetheless,
right.
it's still funny, I find.
Yeah, right.
But what a movie that was. So
Oh, absolutely.
Talk to me a little bit about your relationship with actors. When you're shooting some, from incredible action to incredible sort of intimacy. How do you build relationship with your actors?
I think you have conversations with them and you learn about what their strengths and insecurities are so that you can be a better shepherd of what's comfortable and what's not and how, work together. Like, sometimes somebody will have a favorite side, they always want to be lit from this side. Okay. And you're like, okay, well, tell you what, I'll do that when I can, but there's going to be situations where that makes it impossible. And I don't think the visuals have to compromise for that. I think we can articulate ourselves into a situation where whatever it is that you're concerned about is either in the shadows or something happening. And I promise you, I won't let it end that way. I have you until I'm going to the DI. I will be there until the projector turns off. Trust me. I mean, we did a shot in Being the Ricardos, which is an extreme no-no where we were looking straight up at Nicole Kidman. And at first she saw I wasn't going to do the shot, but Aaron's like, no, I want it to be like that. Right. And, 50-something-year-old woman looking straight down like that, it's not the most complimentary for anybody. Right.
Right. Yeah.
And I navigated it a little bit. I got it a little higher. I pushed her back a little bit. It was still a beautiful angle. And she came in and at first she looked at me like, you're kidding, right? I'm like, hang on a second. Okay. I took the monitor, spun it around, told her to do this, brought a little still card in here. And I'm like, look, that is beautiful. You look great, right? So it's like, okay, all right, I trust you.
Yeah.
So you build that along the
right.
way, and sometimes you trade off things for like, there's something coming on or you're just walking in a room and it can be coming from each side. And she looks at you or he looks at you or whomever the actor is and like, all right, that'll work fine. I'll make this one for you. And then sometime down the road, I think the same thing happens for almost everybody on the set, visual effects, especially like on Tron or even on Being the Ricardos, there was not a lot, but there's stuff going on in the backgrounds and windows and reflections. And if you see anything in a frame that has to be painted out, I think that you try to navigate your way through that and help when you can so that later on, when you actually need help back, it's there for you.
Sure. Absolutely. You mentioned visual effects. We should jump into Tron and chat about Tron Ares a little bit. I'm curious how in depth your involvement is with the effects team, because obviously, especially in something like Tron, which has entire digital worlds that are being created.
Yeah.
How involved are you in the conversations with them about what the lighting should look like in those particular worlds that you aren't necessarily putting a camera in at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's an evolution of all of us. And you do your best job at understanding what that world is going to become and the directions, and you make rules about it. Like, okay, this is the set. This is where certain sources are going to be. Sometimes there's a art rendering of the set that, you hope that it stays. Sometimes there's a previs of it. And you go like, okay, so geography wise, there's searchlights coming from here. This should be hitting from here. Their goal is to go this into this blue screen because that's the stairs that they're going up.
Yeah.
And so you have to contain it a little bit. It's not a free for all. You have to define as much as you possibly can because in coverage, it's all going to matter, right?
Right.
You think like, oh, it's blue. It's not. Well, the key just jumped to the wrong side, or the person's looking the wrong way, or this is not going to work. So you approach it in much the same way you would approach any scene with structure. Give yourself guidelines and rules, and then honestly, it may not be anything what you thought it was going to be, but at least the light is it matches to that world and the eye lines are all correct. And then it doesn't matter if you build around that.
Yeah, sure.
And each scene, I picked one of the fighting scenes in my head just to elaborate about now, but every one of them is different for different reasons. When they're on this light skimmer and they're cruising across a digital bay, right? And it's in the trailer. So on digital water, and they're going over under structures and everything. Well, none of that's built yet, and none of it's timed out, and none of it's fully rendered in our minds about what that's going to be. So you talk it through and you ask about this and you get as close as you can and you have all this interactive light. And sometimes I'm trying to match to something that I know is coming, and sometimes they just have to match to what I did.
Yeah.
Because we don't have control over it now. And so it's a symbiotic relationship, and it goes both directions the whole time.
I find that so fascinating, and especially in a film that also involves so much color. It's not just a simple pass of a light like headlights. We'll have a car. It's like, well, now we have a massive amount of red that's going to go by, or whatever the case may be. And that's a critical part of this world that we've seen since the beginning, since 1982's film, with all the different blues and reds that we had there, and then with Legacy too. So building on top of all of that, do you find in the scope of evolving the story, evolving the color, evolving the look, do you find that how much of a part of that evolution are you versus like your conversations with the director and what they're trying to do?
I think it's a combination of everything. But at the beginning, when things are so just on paper and abstract at the time, then somebody has to have a point of view that we can all kind of anchor ourselves around and then go forward. And that comes from renderings generated by the art department that are dictated by the director, which are approved by, everybody going, okay, this is what this world most likely is going to look like. And it's not exacts because it's evolution. I mean, we wrapped Tron in May of last year, right? So they've had a year and 5 months or 4 months to evolve the special effects. Granted, it took a long time. There's a lot of visual effects in that movie, but that's a lot of time to think about things and recreate and make things better, as you should, right? You don't expect the visual effects to end in May when production stops. And like, well, that's as far as we got. No, I got no more tricks for you guys. It's like, no, like the stuff I've seen the film 14 times, but I've never seen it with sound. So if you ask me if I think it's a good movie, like I really don't have an ability to tell you that. I can tell you that it's a lot to look at. It looks pretty, and the visual effects are amazing. And I've listened to the 9 Inch Nails track that came out Friday, and then it sounds great, but I've never seen it against the visuals. Right. It's funny when you read people's comments about it. They're like, well, it doesn't sound like an album. Well, it's not an album.
It's not an album.
It goes with pictures. And if you take the pictures away, I don't know what you got, right? So much. It's perplexing at sometimes, but that's what it is. But,
my gosh.
Well, it's so much of your role is to shoot this thing and somehow let go of it. Right? Like somehow let go. And that's a place that I find myself really intrigued, like how you let go of the ego and the passion of creating this thing and walk onto something else and just not see it again until the finished package.
It's difficult because I was lucky, we all stayed really good friends. And I got invited often. Actually, the editor, Tyler Nelson, was the assistant editor on all the Fincher movies, on Gone Girl, on Dragon Tattoo, and on some Social Network, right?
Gotcha.
I don't think he was born when we did Fight Club, but anyways. and so he was the editor. And so I already had that friendship. The colorist, Stefan at Company 3, I've known him before he was a colorist, and he was doing the rank changeovers for somebody else, and Joachim and I stayed and so I got invited to see pieces along the way. And Joachim's like, he's very excitable in a youthful way, and would slip us clips all the time that we're not supposed to see just to keep us excited about it.
Yeah.
So
Keep your mouths watering. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah, exactly. And then the really first time I got to really play with it was when we well, we had a few pickup weeks, so you got to see some of the cuts to make the pickup stuff work, right? And then when we did some of the trailer releases and teaser releases, I went and color corrected those, and so I got to see some things finished.
Yeah.
Which when you have a mock up on a gimbal in a blue room and tons of light going by, and the mask part of the face mask isn't real, and the helmets are on, the actors are doing it, and then you see a guy bouncing on a 2x4 and somebody's got a fan going like this. It's like,
what world building?
I'm not sure I'm buying this yet. But when it comes together, you're like, holy crap, that's amazing. That's so fun. And then you turn back into that kid that loves making movies, and you're like, that's why I do that. Because look at that magic.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
Do you have a favorite space? I'm just curious. Like, you're making Tron Ares, you did a million little pieces. Like, I know to some extent there's a journeyman aspect to the work that you do, right? You take the jobs and you do the work because you're good at it and you're giving back to the industry by the work that you do. But what's your favorite? What's the sweet spot for you in terms of genre projects?
Human stories.
Yeah.
Something about the human experience, somebody that has a character arc that finds something good out of something bad, maybe, or just the struggle. In fact, like, I hadn't done a sci-fi, mostly because the ones I'd been all offered were kind of Marvel mania movies, and there's nothing wrong with any of those. I just didn't feel like the ones that I was given, that the stories kind of met that criteria.
Gotcha.
Like, for me, sometimes I watch one of the Avengers fights, and by the time the fight's over, I don't know who's fighting who and where they're supposed to be looking, and it's just chaos. And so I avoided them. Some people will say, "Oh yeah, because you didn't want to get compared to Blade Runner." I'm like, absolutely not. That has nothing to do with it. It just happened to do with comfort level. But Jared Leto actually approached me to shoot Tron, right?
Oh, interesting.
And I went to him, like, after I'd read the script. I go, look, Jared, if it can be anything like the last sequence of Blade Runner, my father's Blade Runner, 82 Blade Runner, where Rutger Hauer and Harrison Ford are sitting on the rooftop and he's talking about life and he has an opportunity to kill him and he does it.
Tears and rain.
Yeah, exactly. And Jared started reciting the entire end sequence, both characters, to me, and said, that's what we're going to get. And I was like, okay, fine. If we can have something like that means that much at some point in that movie. And I don't know if we did.
Yeah.
But that was the goal.
But yeah, you had a goal, right?
Fascinating.
Yeah. Now I'm like, okay, now I can indulge in this, because now I know there's like a sublabor of humanity to it that is important. And he's a program that gets into the real world and wants to live.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that's every bit of Frankenstein's story. We're wired for those kinds of stories about life and humanity.
Exactly.
Out of nothing.
Well, and speaking of, let's shift our conversation to Blade Runner now.
Yeah.
That's a big part of that story too, right? We have these replicants who want to live. Like, it's in some ways the same story. And so I find that to be fascinating. Let's talk about your history with this film. Your dad was shooting this with Ridley Scott. You were high school, college, somewhere that age, I think.
Yeah, I was in college.
Okay.
I had to go to junior college to get into USC. So when I was at junior college, two opportunities came up. One at a commercial company where they had a staff loader, and if you worked 30 days in a row, you could get into the union. You have to understand that it was very difficult to get into the union at the time, and you couldn't really work without being in the union. At the same time, my dad was starting Blade Runner, and there was an opportunity to be the loader on Blade Runner. He didn't think that position would last on Blade Runner. He wasn't sure that was a guarantee, but the commercial company was a guarantee. So he advised me to do that. And quite honestly, like, yes, in retrospect, would it have been, what a great story to tell, to have been on the set during Blade Runner. But I was 19 years old. It was a very difficult movie. A lot of nights, really, it's odd, but those backlots get so unbelievably cold.
Yeah.
They got their own little environment because they sit so low in the valley there. And there was a lot of tension, It was Ridley's first movie in the United States. It was the biggest movie in Hollywood. I think there had just been a writer's strike or something. And so there wasn't a lot of production going on. So all eyes were on this movie, right? And so he just thought it was better that I go the other route. The great part about that is, I would wrap at 6 every day at the commercial company. I'd go over and stay on the lot and watch them shoot until I was falling asleep. Then I'd go home. But
Yeah, right.
I didn't actually get to do Blade Runner, but I was there quite a bit.
Nice.
It's so interesting. So much of what we do on this show is to talk about the films that influence the people making films, right? The films that inspire you. And here it is. You just said you're looking for human stories. You had never done science fiction. The movie that you choose to talk about with us is a science fiction film, largely very human story, but also, how much did you choose the film to talk about because of your connection with your dad versus how much do you find this film still inspires you as a filmmaker?
All of the above. Like myself and all of my peers are still borrowing from Blade Runner. It still set the bar so high. Amongst cinematographers, it's like the cinematographer's film, one of them for sure at the top. And they accomplished like such sophisticated imagery with minimum amount of tools that they had at the time. You look at that film and you think, wow, well, they had dozens of xenons and searchlights, and it's like, well, first of all, there was no xenon company yet. The gaffer on Doug Hart, who was the gaffer on Blade Runner, created the company after Blade Runner called Xenotech, which was where we got all the xenon lights from. Up until that company, until we didn't use xenons anymore. But they had 3 1K xenons on that film, and that's what they made all those shafts. And they took film core and cut plain kind of blades and would spin them with a drill, and that would be the rotation, and then the 1K xenons would be coming through, and that's those constant wiping shafts that you would see.
Yeah.
So they did a lot with very little.
Yeah.
It's obviously there's a lot of inspiration with the look in the film, which for me, I'm just always, I just fall in love with it every time I watch it. And for this, I actually went back and it's been a while since I had seen the original 1982 release, the theatrical release, because it sounded like Jordan wasn't really involved in the director's cut. And so I just wanted to kind of go back and just make sure I was watching that original version to see how it looked. And it just struck me how, like, we've got cyberpunk and we've got film noir and kind of neo-noir and such a variety of different tones and cultures and everything that fill like every inch of the world that they've created here. And it really kind of blows me away. As far as kind of like that kind of the world building that we have here, what do you pull from this when you watch this film that just, it's so rich in texture?
Yeah, I know it's so rich, yet you don't walk away with thinking it's a dark movie. It's not like there's still enough eye candy. There's still enough. I just feel like the visuals match the story and the environment. Who knew what that world was supposed to look like? So that obviously gave them a lot of creative leeway, but they took advantage of it and then styled it in a noir way that is just so brilliant. Every time you could introduce something that was noir, they did. And so it was in the futuristic version of noir. You had the old detectives' offices, and you had his house, and you had the Sebastian the dollmaker's place, and they all have the elements of like an old detective movie surrounded by technology and beams coming through from floating blimps that come by and that kind of stuff. And I just thought they approached it classically, but then saturated it with noir and took advantage of every kind of little nuance and anything that Ridley started as a production designer or an art director in commercials, and it was so brilliant in bringing so many of those ideas to Blade Runner. So I think like some interesting side stories, and you tell me if I'm getting too far off track, but
Sure.
when they were building that set, the Blade Runner streets on the old Warner Brothers New York streets, right?
Yeah.
Francis Coppola had heard that they were having some financial issues with all the tubes, the neon tubes and fluorescent lights. And he had Zoetrope at the time, and Zoetrope was going under. They were about to file for bankruptcy, but he had just finished One from the Heart and told Ridley, you can take all the neon and all the fluorescent tubes for free. Just bring them back when you're done. And so I thought like that's parts of story making and filmmaker to filmmaker that you don't hear about. In fact, like at the end of the movie, when Sean Young and Harrison are flying into the forest and the sun's coming up, all that footage that's outside of the spinner is from Kubrick's movie, The Shining.
Right. Yeah. I read
Shining. Yeah.
So
it's amazing.
I can go down a few of those because I did a film that Harrison was in, and we found ourselves talking a lot. And he told me the story about reading the script in that monotone voice.
We're talking about his narration. That bit?
Yeah. I did a film called the K-19, The Widowmaker, and we became good friends on that movie. And he was explaining to me that he had done a pass with Ridley. His contract obligates him to do 3 voiceovers, right?
Yeah.
He'd done one with Ridley. He'd done one with the studio, and he had one left. And they flew him, or he had a project for whatever reason. He ended up in London and arriving at about 10 o'clock at night at this mixing studio. Nobody greeted him. He didn't know where he was supposed to go. He walks down the halls and sees a light on at the end of the corridor, walks in, and it's a recording room, and there's an engineer behind the glass, and he just points to the center of the room. In the center of the room, there's a mic and there's script sitting there. And he's like,
how mysterious.
He got there and he wasn't happy with the situation and fulfilled his obligation by reading it as just as he would read, a newspaper, and read through the whole thing. And that's what he told me was how that came about.
That's the one they used. God.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I know that your dad worked on that original one, and then Ridley went back and had the director's cut in the 90s, and then he had the final cut. I believe it was at the 25th anniversary. Where do you stand on the different versions of the film?
Controversial question. Maybe the most controversial question of this entire conversation.
I like it when filmmakers pull out things that we didn't know about and add little nuances to it. I don't see like it. There's always reasons why something happened. Sometimes really benign ones, like this contract said it had to be 2 hours and 3 minutes long, and if it goes over that, he loses $500,000. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm not saying that was the case, but you never know like why things have to go and come. And then when you can see it and it adds another layer to a story, I find that fascinating. You want to know how cool Ridley was? Is Ridley, when he did that 25-year one, he asked me to come in and color correct it.
Oh, wow.
Really?
That's very cool. Yeah.
Because there was a few things that had to be changed and updated, and there was like some in through the rain in the spinner sequences, you could see the cable holding the spinner.
Yep.
And so some of his deal was, I'll do it for the 25 years, but you got to fix a couple things that have bothered me, including a few scratches that have come over the years and the negative and that kind of stuff. So that was I thought that was just a really thoughtful thing to do.
It's a legacy project. I note you didn't answer the question about which is your favorite. I just
I don't know. I like the second director's cut.
Yeah. What do you think of the added like cloud element in the Tears and Rain sequence when the dove goes flying off? With filling the sky with more information than we had previously.
Yeah, it was new for me, and it was, I don't know. It's like opening the same present up, and there's a new part to it that you didn't know before. I didn't need it, but it was fun to watch.
Yeah.
I like some of the nuances with the unicorn and the different little origami that he was playing with that you see more, that have more relevance. You learn that story more and things like that.
Right.
So.
It's very fascinating. What do you think of 2049? Did you enjoy that one?
I did. I enjoyed it. I thought Roger did a beautiful job. And of course, Denny is a phenomenal director. I had a few little things in it that I preferred in the other one, without stepping on brother filmmakers. I thought the motifs that they played, like the water reflection motifs and the time lapse that they did with the sun movement through the buildings, was the techniques were better in the first one to me.
Yeah.
I didn't understand why, if you're trying to seduce Harrison into giving up where their child is, or their program is, or their replicant human crossover is.
Yeah.
And Jared is the epitome of replicant builders making perfect ones. Why is Rachel like all grainy and not like, if you're going to seduce
perfect?
Yeah. Why wouldn't it be the most perfect thing in the whole film?
Yeah.
And he loses his shit because he can't resist that.
Yeah.
But if it's all grainy and coming and going, it's like, you're trying to trick me, I think.
Yeah, right.
I feel tricked by that movie, which I also adore. But one of the things that I think Roger had easy is the general production design, the general look of the film. Roger and Denny just like they changed the palette. So much of it felt like such an honorific to the original movie that it's almost not even variations on a theme. It's just like, we're going to do it again. And I'm saying that complimentarily. Like, I think they make these two movies so perfectly of a piece for me that I could just watch them back to back and be into this generational story in a way that captures the look and feel of what I got out of watching Blade Runner for the first time, having my entire universe blown in high school. And so woof. The things they added, right? The things they added, like the Anna de Armas character, extraordinary. Those kinds of things level up. But the foundation they had to work on, they did, I think, a really stellar job of doing honor to the original film.
Yeah. No, don't get me wrong. I enjoyed the film, but since we're picking it apart, I was just telling you things that I like. Another thing that bothered me a little bit, and this is just choices, but I think I would have chosen differently. But when he hires the hooker to be, and then they put the layer of his partner who's not there anymore to be with her, I don't know, there was this, to me, like, you should have let them melt into one and then let it be. And they kept unregistering it to remind us that it's not that. And that was like, well, let me believe it for a second before you keep telling me on the head that it's not, because I know it's not. I saw it merge together. I get it. But, those are a little thing. And the theater I was in, oh my God, it was so loud when I heard it. Thought I was in a Michael Bay movie.
It's funny what sticks in your memory.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's great.
Going back to Blade Runner, I want to just talk a little bit of kind of about the characters and the nature of our story here, because I find it to be such and I guess this also ends up speaking back to kind of what we're saying with Tron, but I love this sense of a story about these, like this rich sense of these characters who are trying to kind of like figure themselves out, right? Like that's kind of at the core of the film is who am I, and I don't know. I find that to be such a powerful element that I think I don't know. I think Ridley Scott was a filmmaker who knew how to tell a story that way in science fiction without feeling like he had to be more overt with it.
He built that world and then let that simple story play out in it. And like, I say simple, meaning that it's a relatable story, not that it's not uncomplicated story. It's very complicated, but I thought it was tangible and relatable, and you could have put that, you could take those characters and you could make them, city of Atlantis underwater, or you could put them on a moon, or you can make them cowboys and Indians. And it's the same kind of struggle about somebody has something that somebody else wants. And are they really appreciating what it is? Because we're losing it and we wish we had that, and that struggle. And where does that cross over into wanting to destroy what you can't have? I just think it was such a, Philip K. Dick's book was so amazing, and Ridley's interpretation and then breakdown of that script was phenomenal. So,
yeah, right. Well, I mean, Jeff, I know our time is short. I'm thrilled to chat with you about it, and also with Tron Ares. Thank you so much for coming and joining us. Do you have any places online that you send people to learn more about you and what you're up to?
Unfortunately, I don't. When
I
did
know that's unfortunate.
I decided a long time ago that I wasn't going to do it, and then of course I ended up doing the Social Network movie about Facebook. And Fincher and I both would have never been on Facebook and don't know anything about it, and plan to stay that way. So I really haven't done anything. No, just go see the movies.
Go see the movies. Check him out on IMDb. You can see what he is up to.
Yeah.
It's the most important part.
They're really, really starting to push the publicity for Tron. It's like I saw an NFL commercial the other day where they're getting on light bikes and riding through the city. It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's everywhere.
It is a full court press on that PR. I'm actually surprised your own representation isn't harder on you to build up your profiles online. You show great restraint.
I talked to my wife about it this morning, actually. Like, maybe I should hire someone to start doing it, because we were going to take one picture and put it in the Instagram. My Instagram, I have like 3,000 followers on Instagram. I have a picture of my daughter when she was a baby, and a picture of my daughter when she's grown up, and a picture of my wife and I. Those 3 pictures. That's it. That's all I have. And I have 3,000 followers. So I could. I mean, gosh, all this stuff coming out.
Have you considered putting yourself on a light bike and putting that on Instagram?
No.
I hear that's all the rage.
That's right. Oh, man.
I never got to get on one. They were kind of, well, actually, I got on the mock-up one, not the real one. I got on the mock-up one. It's kind of uncomfortable, truly. They could only sit on it for so long because it's this weird hunched over position.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It requires all the wrong muscles. Well, dude, thank you very, very much, Jeff. You're fantastic to take the time to do this. I know your schedule's crazy, but we sure appreciate you.
Oh, no. I thank you guys for doing this. Thanks for inviting me, and thanks for doing this for all of us.
Well, we are thrilled to have had you again. Thanks so much. For everyone out there, we hope you enjoyed the show, and we certainly hope you like the movie like we do here on Movies We Like.
Cheers, guys.
Movies We Like is a part of the True Story FM Entertainment Podcast Network and the Next Reel family of film podcasts. The music is Chonk Clap by Out of Flux. Find the show at truestory.fm and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Letterboxd at The Next Reel. Learn about becoming a member at thenextreel.com/membership. And if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, we always appreciate it if you drop one in there for us. See you next time.